So we stay stuck down here until something else distracts us and we feel better, or until circumstances change. And now, okay, well, that's better, so I can feel good again. But we're waiting for external factors to help us get back up. And when we spend too much of our time here, I don't care how big any of us dream, if we can't get out of this, if we don't know, if we have to always wait for outside circumstances to change.
Hello, David. Great to see you. Really an honor to have you here.
Oh, it's my honor to be here, Yair. I have a lot of respect for you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. You know, I'm still like in hype from the interview that we just spoke about. Find a Genius, the book. Again, it's going to be in the comments below. And you gave so much value over there that could really help each person I know. I know a lot of people, so I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
The thing is that, let's say, you know, we said that each person has a genius. I find my genius. I found it. Amazing. You know, great. Good job. That's number one. In order to, because all of us know, like when things come up, I saw it through my life, whether it's, you know, in business or special forces, but like also when you find that genius inside you, there are going to be I guess obstacles. There are going to be things that come up, and it's not if they come up, it's when they come up. It's going to be there. And I also, like, again, you're my mentor, and I learned from you the things that you went through and you shared. So I would love to know how do we come over those obstacles? You have this amazing tool that is called the Resilience Map. How do we get over those obstacles? How do we use our mind to win? Because finding the genius is amazing. Now we need to utilize whatever's here to win the game.
Yeah. That's a great question. And the reason I love the question is because that's a question that I've been on a decades-long quest to answer better and better for myself. I've been married to Brenda. We've been together for over 20 years, almost 25 years. And a few years before that, I had was with another woman. We divorced. And so, you know, there was a couple of year gap between there. And as I was still in my first marriage, one day I opened up with my wife, my then wife, and shared with her really kind of what was going on. And she listened very intently. And at the end, she said, wow, you got a lot going on in there. I think you might be depressed. Have you ever thought of seeing a therapist? I was like, nah, I'm fine. You know, I was just telling you what's going on in my mind. Everything's good. So whatever, fast forward a few years, my wife and I actually had as amicable of divorce as one can have. And she had moved on, I had moved on, met another woman, Brenda, my wife, and I think we were still dating. And I trusted her. So I started to open up a little bit and told her what was going on in my mind. And she listened really intently. And when I was done speaking, she said, wow, you got a lot going on in there. I think you might be depressed. Have you ever thought of seeing a therapist? I was like, no, everything's fine. For the longest time, I never told Brenda that was like having a deja vu experience, because almost word for word, she said what my wife had said.
Oh, she didn't know that.
Oh yeah, no, she had no idea. I told her much later. I was not going to own up to that. Come on. But, you know, neither one of them was a therapist. And so neither one of them was, you know, the word depressed wasn't necessarily a diagnosis. But I will say, I was really sad. I felt powerless in many ways. I wasn't generally happy in my life. And they both heard it and reflected it back to me. Now I can say I love much of my life. You know, nobody has the perfect life every day, but I've got a pretty great life. I feel really blessed. I've got, you know, many things. And it wasn't that the world changed. It was that I learned to look at what was happening within myself, which, by the way, because we all have similar brain wiring, is pretty much what happens. Some version of it is what happens to all the other people around me. And so in doing a whole bunch of study and then learning how to bring it to life for myself, I also was able to help other people apply it. And I mean, I've done tremendous amounts of study, and I've tried to coalesce it. And so one of those things that you asked about was, what's this thing called the resilience map? So that's what I find is everybody goes through certain steps, no matter what's happening when you face a challenge, when you're trying to stretch from I'm not feeling so great about myself to I want to feel better about myself, or to I'm here, but I want to create that magnificent thing. Magnificent to me doesn't mean, you know, or something I really want to create over there. Because the first thing that's going to show up is something that Stephen Pressfield, who wrote the book, The War of Art, highly recommend the book. In The War of Art, he talks about anytime anybody wants to do something, improve themselves or make the world better or stretch in some great way, the thing that's always going to show up is what he calls the resistance. And the resistance is just some manifestation of fear within ourselves. And each of us has our own version of resistance, because our resistance knows exactly what it needs to say to us, our version of resistance to say to ourselves, to talk us out of it, or to keep us from trying, or to slow us down so that we don't, have to. Change is learning, and learning is uncomfortable, or, learning is change and change is uncomfortable, however you want to look at it. To make progress, it's going to be really uncomfortable. So our resistance is like, no, let's just stay in this more comfortable place. Even though I don't like it, it's the devil I know versus the devil I don't know. So I'm going to stay here. And so what I developed in this, I lead a program called Mind to Win. I share something called the Resilience Map in it. And I'll just give you a quick sketch of it right now, because my guess is that you'll recognize this. So to make this more applicable to you, I'll just say, think of a time when you stumbled recently, where you tried something and it failed and you were really frustrated by it, something that you really wished for didn't happen, a promotion, a raise, a date.
Anything basically.
Yeah, it's sometime when you were just not at your best. And this came from years of study, because I told you earlier, I was not in a great place myself. And there are so many amazing resources. I've gone to ashrams. I've studied with meditation teachers. I've studied academic books. I've studied with psychologists, all sorts of things, and they all have amazing information. What I found was, it was like one person could describe this area really well. Somebody had that really well, but I for myself, I couldn't piece it all together to do something with it. And so what I created was this thing called the Resilience Map, and I'll just talk you through it really quickly. You're going along, and just imagine that this is where you're really happy. This is where you're feeling, or you are really powerful. Whatever talent you have, is you're able to really access it fully. And you have what I call C5, which means you're confident, you're clear-minded, you're connected to others, you're creative, and you're calm. That's what lives up here. Down here is the opposite. That's a frown face. That's power negative, P minus, P negative. And this is C0. So you're not feeling confident, you're not clear, you're not connected, you're not creative, you're not calm. And essentially what tends to happen is, if you think of that event in your life, you were going along, and hey, let's hope you're up here. You're somewhere probably above mid-range. And at some moment, something happened. Almost always there was some precipitating event. Somebody made a comment. You looked at your bank account and realized it wasn't as good as you thought it was. Somebody else got the promotion. You asked somebody out on a date, or thought they would call or whatever, and they didn't, or it didn't go as well. You burned your meal, whatever. It just didn't go well. You didn't deliver the project on time. Something went wrong, and very quickly, I mean, really quickly, we go down. And most of us, without realizing it, have no idea about how to get out of here. So we fall. Something precipitated, we fall. I call this a trip. We take a power negative trip, because we start to lose all of our power. Now, this may look like anger and fury, or complaining, or whatever yours look like. You went into silence. And a lot of times we think this is really powerful when we do this, but we don't realize that the best of us is gone. And most of us have read all the books, but we don't know how to, in action, in reality, go beyond this. So we stay stuck down here until something else distracts us and we feel better. or until circumstances change. And now, okay, well, that's better, so I can feel good again. But we're waiting for external factors to help us get back up. And when we spend too much of our time here, I don't care how big any of us dream, if we can't get out of this, if we don't know, if we have to always wait for outside circumstances to change. Okay, he did this thing I didn't like, so now he stops doing it. Okay, now I can be happy. Or I was frustrated, and then somebody pulled my attention over here. This didn't change, but they distracted me from it. Now I feel better. That's not actually, there's no strength within yourself that had to do that. You just had to wait for circumstances to change. If we don't
It's
know,
kind of like putting yourself in a jail, if I'm understanding correctly, because you're basing your freedom of going back up on someone else doing something, right? Like,
excellent. Yeah, perfect. That's right. It's always an outside factor. And I like to say our outer world is always going to be a reflection of our inner world. And so if we don't know how to manage our inner world, things aren't going to change that much. Now, sometimes, like I said, we get lucky, but if we spend too much time down here, I call this LWDD. And that's, I don't care how big you dream. If you spend too much time here, this is called the land where dreams die. And so eventually, I mean, what I learned for myself, what I help people learn is that actually, as you understand the way your mind works, the way your brain wiring works, the way mindfulness can be enacted, if you understand your own thought patterns, which is not that difficult, you can be a student of yourself pretty quickly. You can learn actually to pull yourself back out and get back to an even more powerful place. And there are steps along here that you do, but what's important is to start to recognize that when this happens, this is unavoidable in life. Something's going to knock you down. You get triggered. We all get triggered by things that happen, but it's up to us. Do I move in here and start to reside in the land where dreams die? Or do I know myself well enough? Do I practice mindfulness? Am I resilient enough to, regardless of that, can I eventually pull myself back up? And look, there are plenty of things that sometimes it doesn't go instantly. I'm working with a client who lost someone very dear to them. Well, that was a triggering event when that person died. They felt really sad. They were less powerful in some ways, but it's also called grieving, and it's natural. But you don't expect grieving to go away like that. So sometimes this takes a lot longer to come out of it. But if you do your work, you can still come out of it. And that's what most people don't know this map. And then the thing that's really important here, Yair, is that this, as you start to understand it, that moment is actually an uncomfortable emotion that we're feeling: fear, sadness, rage, life is unfair, I'm being, abused, victimized, whatever. That person is mean to me. And anyway, we feel really uncomfortable emotions, and most of us don't like uncomfortable emotions. I'm not a big fan of them myself, but what we do is, because we don't really understand how the emotions work, we do everything that we can to get away from it, that bad feeling. And that's actually why we do this. An example of myself, I was the youngest of 4 kids growing up. So I always had somebody older than me. It felt like telling me what to do. So life a lot of times felt unfair. So when life would feel unfair, I felt powerless. I didn't like that. And so I would do this, take away my power, but I found moves that I could make to feel like I got the power back. So I would whine, I would pout, I would throw a tantrum, I would withdraw, I would do all these things that were, not really helpful. They took my power away, but it felt better than that in the moment. But because it wasn't a healthy thing, it was taking my power away. And that's why I was spending time in the land where dreams die. Even into adulthood today, one of the things that will trigger me is if a situation feels unfair to me or to someone else. But now I have the understanding of myself and the tools to be able to pull myself back up. So we all have these uncomfortable emotions. This is our attempt to avoid them. And sometimes these uncomfortable emotions actually feel unsafe. So we're really trying to get away from them then. Is this unpacking it helping you?
No, it's really great, and I'm really liking what you're saying here, because it's something that for sure will help me, and I believe can help a lot of people, because we're all human beings and we go through that. But my interest right now is based on what you just now said. if I know that there's this, like, is there a way to know that, okay, that a certain emotion is going to bring to a certain dip? Because you said that there's that emotion comes and then we go down. So if I can recognize before that emotion, does that mean I know the dip is going to come and then I know I need to prepare those tools to go back up, or I can't?
Yeah, well, what I would say is, I think most of what you asked is possible. We just have to build our own awareness. You know, in almost all of the leadership development, personal development, becoming a better human, the first step is always self-awareness, is to being able to look in the mirror or have somebody else, and sometimes it takes somebody else to say, hey, do you realize that your pattern looks like this? There are personality assessments that can help with that. Different things to have insights into yourself. And then you can anticipate either, well, here comes a situation for me, you know, like unfair being one of mine. Here's a situation that could feel to me unfair. So I need to be prepared. What will I do? I can, you know, I can have people, I could set up people around me like, hey, help me stay at my best, not lose it here. I can try to eliminate as many of the potentially unfair feeling factors in advance, but I can never avoid it completely. So I might get triggered, but if with awareness of myself, I probably won't fall as far. I'll catch it much more quickly.
Got it.
And then I can, you know, I bring it back. And the last piece of this model is what I call to train. And so to build on your question is, once I know what this looks like, and I kind of know what this behavior is, I can actually identify things that feel more powerful or feel like a good antidote to this. And
Right.
just like a great athlete would do, a great athlete, you know, take a basketball player. A basketball player is not going to try a new move, or the team's not going to run a new play for the first time in front of, you know, on the championship game in front of the competition. They're going to practice it when nobody's around, and there's no pressure, and get it into their muscle memory by training, when they don't need it. So that then when they're really under that pressure, they, instead of having to access it for the first time when their brain is freaking out, and they're in fight, flight, and freeze, they've got the muscle memory so that they can access it here. That's the same thing. Firefighters do that. First responders, you know, soldiers do that in the military. And so they practice when there is no pressure to build the muscle memory so that they can access it under high pressure. So that's one of the things you can do also, Yair, is just even the practice of self-awareness can be really helpful to you here. But then I actually find that there are things that you can do, just physical things that you might expect that would make you feel more powerful physically. Because this experience is not just a mental experience. It's very physical. Your heart races, your mouth gets dry. You have all of those anxiety or stress-based responses that you would have as if your life was really in danger. So you can start to practice pulling yourself out of that when you don't need it, so that you can access it when you do need it.
Yeah, so I really connect to what you said on the physical side. I just want to make sure before, because I had, like, you know, as you were talking, all these questions come up, but, you know, I appreciate your time, so I'll be more focused. And basically we couldn't put focus on, you know, on prevention rather than a cure when you're already all the way down. And those emotions might come up from different events. So it's not one event that with each time the same emotion, it's different things that come. And those things, if we're aware of them, then we see the pattern. And then instead of falling all the way down, so we fall, and then it's like you start falling from a cliff, and like you hold and you stop. And then you start climbing back up, not all the way from the bottom when you're injured, when you just, you know, fell a little bit. But my question is, you know, when you start climbing a cliff, first you need to have muscles in order to climb. And if you're injured because you're all the way down, you also need to take care of yourself. So what are those actions that you do? At least I know there are a lot, but if you could share with us a few actions to do that, if we start, when we start falling down.
Yeah,
like you said, it's physical. So
yeah, I'll give you
what are
two
things that we can actually implement and do in order to start climbing back up.
Yeah, two things you can do when you have that awareness. Without the awareness, you're not going to be able to help yourself much. You're just going to keep. But when you start to be aware, I'm aware. I'm not at my best right now. One thing is what I call self-coaching. You just can talk to yourself, even if it's to say, hey, Yair, you're not at your best right now. You got triggered. Something like, you don't even know yet what it is, but just notice that you're not at your best. And sometimes awareness by itself will slow down this process, can even help you. At the very least, it might level you off, but it can start to that. If it's not too terrible, it can bring you back up. Just be aware. So you self-coach yourself. And then maybe you have some things that yourself, like when I think life is unfair, I can say, really, is that, is that really a threat to you? Are you sure that they meant what you think that's, so I sort of walk myself through just thinking this through from different angles, broadening my perspective, because when we're in fear response, super focused. So broadening my perspectives. Do you think they could have meant that a different way? Maybe I could ask somebody else about that. Do I want to be in this place? I'm definitely not going to be a nice person to be around, and I'm probably not going to be super productive. I mean, I just ask myself those questions, self-coaching. The other thing you can do would be physical. And I would always say, if I could only do one thing, it would probably be the breath. Because as you know, from your military training, again, great athletes use the breath. Anybody who's under a high stress environment, if they're successful, they've learned probably how to use the breath, because the great thing about the breath is your mind can jump all over the place, past, present, future, over there, over here. But your body and your breath can only be in the present, here and now. And that's where all the power is. So just, bring yourself back to the breath, whether it's box breathing, or Andrew Weil suggests inhale through your nose on 4 beats, hold your breath for 7 beats, exhale through your mouth for 8 beats, and then repeat it. And if you do any of those types of breathing, there's Wim Hof breathing, which I have mentored a young man who lived in an incredibly stressful environment where his life, until we were able to get him out of it, his life was sometimes in danger. And so he used Wim Hof breathing that you can also look up on YouTube or whatever. But any type of breathing that emphasizes a stronger, longer exhale will help you calm. And so the four breaths in through the nose, 7 beats hold, and then 8 beats exhale through the nose. The exhale is the longest part. Anything that emphasizes the exhale, deep inhale, exhale in the belly with a long exhale will probably be the fastest way to get yourself back. And I know that because that's what any super high performer has, some form of breath practice. I can almost promise you.
Oh, that sounds something that kind of up there, breath, some of that. But I could say I also use it. So I understand how it works, but I want to tell people that never did breath work. If it doesn't work the first time, nothing does. Because a lot of times when people are new, so they're like, it didn't work this time. So we'll share a little secret. We started walking. None of us walked at the beginning. We walked and fell. So the same thing. The tools you brought over here, I think they're great. And whoever's in the game, that can even help them elevate the game. And whoever's not there.
Yeah. You train when you don't need it. Yeah. So if you try to breath work when you're already super stressed out, it may not serve you as much. But if you develop the memory, the muscle memory of breathing. I mean, even, for me, self-coaching, my name is David, but I go by David. It's a nickname I picked up when I used to work in South America, where I had some really powerful experiences. David in Spanish is David. And just by calling myself David, I'm back in that place of, man, I feel powerful. And so that's a very quick self-coaching for me. Because it takes me back to a time when I was new in my profession, and having the opportunity to work with a lot of people in a big role that was a lot of fun, and I felt that inner power. And so maybe you have a nickname for yourself that's the powerful version of yourself. Whatever it is, there's lots of ways to self-coach also.
Okay, so I like the fact that you just mentioned at the end that there's a lot of different ways. So each person could do it in the way that works for them. It's not one way. But if we're going back for a step, in order to go for 2 steps, so you said that there's first I need to be aware, right? So to see those patterns that come back and realize that we could focus first on the prevention.
Yeah.
And instead of waiting, and then using these 2 steps of self-coaching and breathing, both are great steps, and it's a matter of practice until we turn them into an amazing. step into something that helps us a lot more. And I want to know something that I'm going on a question that goes on all the decades of your experience. The goal of this channel is to help people, overcome their challenges and lighten their path, and you provide your amazing tools. But for the tens of thousands of people that you coach and and came through your way, what's like I'll say the one or two tools that can really light people's path? And let's say they have no clue like of any special tools. They're new to this whole world or not. But like you met so many people, like what are these two tools that can really help them light their path?
Yeah. It's what I would say is it's anything that helps you get to present. Because we don't realize how much of our time is spent either worrying about the past or having anxiety about the future, or wishing we'd said something in the past or about the future, or thinking about that thing over there or this idea over here, that anything that is all those things take you away from the present. And sometimes, okay, let's speculate as a team about what the future could look like. That's a really productive use consciously of going into the future. Or let's look back and do a postmortem of what happened so that we can understand what mistakes were made so that we learn from them and move forward in a better way. That's a very productive way to look other than the present, but you're doing it from the present when you do it. What I'm talking about is people who actually, they spend very little time in the present tense. They're always over there thinking about that other place that they wish they were, or they're glad that they're not, or the future or the past. And they can't access their full power in the present. So what I would say, Yair, any of the things that you can do to be more present, talking to yourself about what's happening, self-coaching, that's going to bring you back to the present. Becoming aware of what your experience is, that's in the present that you're having that experience. So even if you're like, oh, I realize I'm off in the future, I have anxiety about the future, the moment you realize you're doing that, you just brought yourself back to the present. When you practice gratitude, if that's what you want to do, that's very present tense. When you do any body practice where you're actually paying attention to your experience. I'm not talking about getting on the treadmill, putting in your headsets and listening to music and being here, moving your body physically, but being somewhere else. I mean, when you are actually paying attention to the present tense and experiencing your body, the here and the now, you're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel more energized. You're gonna get smarter. Like you don't need to go study. You'll just have more access to the talent and the brilliance that you have. And so anything that you can do, so anything that I've suggested so far has been about, the intersection of past, present, future in the present, and the intersection of away or there to right here. So it's the here and now at the intersection of those two things is where all of your power, all of your happiness will exist. We tell ourselves, when I get to that place in the future, that's when I'll be happy. The only place we can actually experience happiness is in the here and now. And so that's, to me, ultimately what we do. And in the Mind to Win program, I break each one of these down and help people develop practices. But essentially what I'm helping them do is to learn when they're not present, when they're not here and now, because most of us don't realize how much time, the majority of our time, we're not there. And then, okay, then what do I need to do to pull myself back to the intersection of those, the here and the now, to reach the here and the now, and then turn that into a habit? Because even though you know it, you still have to practice it.
Wow, what a present to be in the presence. I really appreciate you sharing that, and I love what you said that basically if we're all day worrying about the past or and all this the stress about the future, we're not living life. And just being here in the present, and you give these amazing tools, whether it's through the breathing, through the self-coaching, gratitude. I really appreciate you sharing that. It really, I believe, change people's lives if they're here in the now. Then they live the life and they don't just exist in life.
Yeah,
it could be a total different life. So I really appreciate that. And
well, can I turn the spotlight back on you for a second, Yair? So it's really easy to talk to you, not just this time, but anytime we've had a conversation, because you are so present. And so by you being so present, you call me into the present and you make me better. And so you do that for everyone who's listening, but also we can do that for each other. So if you're having trouble with everything I've just said, be like Yair and just find someone that you really want to listen to and care and be present with them. Not only are you going to help them, but when you start to feel present, you just feel better. So if anything that I suggested just feels too far out of reach right now, find someone and be present with them. They'll be better off. You'll call them into the present and you'll feel better. So
Wow.
imitate Yair is the answer.
Thank you very much for the warm words. I really appreciate it. I try to learn from everyone from you, so I really thank you. Thank you very much. And I really know it's not just something that I think I actually know this, because I went through and your teachings and some of the works that you do, and there's so much more into it. And I would love people, in addition to reading the book or just getting more knowledge from you, because I'm sure it could light their path. And we really hope that light their path, light the path of the people surrounding them. So where can people find you, find more information from you? Of course, I'll leave the book, the link to the book.
Probably the easiest is just to go to my website, davidmartinco.com. So David Martin, MartinCo.com. And
We'll also leave that at the bottom.
great. That tells you when my future programs are coming, and we'll be leading a Mind to Win program after the first of the year and different things like that.
I went through it, so I really recommend it. Great, still great. Like I said, I go over it. So David, really thank you very much for your time, for your wisdom. And there's so much for me to learn, and I also believe for the rest of the people watching this. And again, really thank you. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very
It's my
much.
pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much.
Good touch.
I hope you enjoyed the video and got some tools to overcome your challenges and light your path. If you haven't yet, please smash that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget, the most amazing things in life are the ones you take for granted.